Hey, welcome into the Hot Shop, everyone. I'll give a quick introduction as to what we're going to see and who we're going to see. I'll point out real quick that we have cameras that follow the artist movements around up on the screen, and we'll have closed captioning as we go along. Hopefully that should help out with the echo. Now, I'm going to focus mostly at the center bench right here where we're going to see these dragons being created. We have a lot of these dragons right here down on the front table, and these are all eventually going to be used as stoppers for these blue decanters. So this is a full example, finished example right here. And these are eventually going to be sold along with the goblets at our Red Hot auction coming up on September 19th. So that's the whole idea behind the project today. And yeah, we're going to make as many of these as we can by the end of the day. We come up with a different theme each year for our Red Hot auction, and then surrounding that theme, we create goblets and decanters. There was a lot of prototyping involved, as always, and this is the final design. And just to kind of give you an idea of the variety of designs, we have a slideshow of images of the previous year's designs up on the screen now. Yeah, you'll see how often we switch it up. Thank you. So the people who are working at the center bench, they work for the museum, and you'll see them working with visiting artists, working on commissioned pieces, store items. You'll always see them down here working on something. And then over on the right bench, we have some hands-on workshops going on throughout the day today. So people are coming down on the floor and they're making some blown fish today. That's the workshop. And this is something that you guys could sign up for as well. They have a calendar that they can share with you at the front desk, or you can check it out online. Now, to start this dragon, we have already gathered up a couple of layers of clear glass on the end of our pipe from this tank with the closed door in the back. This is holding molten glass inside of a large ceramic crucible just at about 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. And once we pick up that glass, we have rolled it in that little metal dish on the table there, and that's where we're picking up our color, which is an amber. After that, we stuffed the glass in a mold, so we have ridges going down this piece of glass. And we're now adding ridges in the opposite direction, wrapping around the piece of glass. And because of this, we'll have kind of a waffle or a net texture across the surface of the piece. And again, feel free to take a closer look at these finished dragons, because you will see that texture and all of those fine details a lot easier up in the front. So we start by shaping the tail. This is the overall shape of the body. And from here on, we have a lot of bit work. So bit work is a little bit self-explanatory, but basically we bring over these bits, as we call them, of colored glass on the end of the pipe, and we just attach them to the piece over and over again. So each individual bit will turn into an individual part of the dragon, like a singular wing, or the spikes down the back of the neck, or fins on the tail, like we just added right now. And I always kind of tune into what people say about these when they're watching. A lot of people think this looks like magic, and I agree, but it's actually years of experience. So Ben, the one who's sitting down, he's been working with glass for about 35 years. And of course, he makes it look very easy, but this is a very technically challenging thing to make. So next, to be able to work on the head of the dragon, we have to attach a second pipe to the bottom, which we just did, and then break the piece off of the first pipe. We're going to use the glass that's already there on the end to finish off the shape of the neck and kind of start the head. And just in case any of you didn't know, feel free to ask any questions that you have. Just grab my attention and I'll come right over. Doesn't even have to be relating to what you're seeing on the floor. I've gotten lots of questions about the glass in the museum as well. So these dragons are going to be used as stoppers for these decanters. And the decanters and the goblets both are supposed to be, matching, and they're going to be sold during our Red Hot auction. Yeah, which is coming up September 19th. It's our annual auction. It's a huge fundraiser for the museum. Yes, actually, they are. These guys do all of the kids' design glass pieces, which we make those once a month. And funny enough that you bring that up because we actually made one earlier, technically. One that we've already made before. I heard that the Catacata, yeah, there we go. Yeah, we remade that one earlier today. And so that was the third time we made it, I believe. Usually we just make two, and one will go home with the family, and then one's put on display here. But I think that one was so popular that we made a third one, and it's going to go into the Red Hot auction as well. But yeah, these guys, they actually go through those drawings each month, and they choose the one to make as well. Yeah, I have gotten a lot of questions about this today, so I'll just share with the rest of the audience if you guys are curious. But when it comes to our auctions, we have some items that are set price and some items that are auctioned. It is an auction, but these ones are all going to be a set price, the goblets and decanters. And some of them are sold as like sets, and some of them are sold individually. I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. So we just attached a large bit to create the head of the dragon. And this is a moment that I always like to point out. It's a little bit unusual, but we have brought over a tray with these really tiny pieces of glass. These are the eyes for the dragon. So These are actually yellow on the outside and black on the inside. And essentially it starts as this long rod of colored glass. All you see is yellow from the outside, but when you look at the cross section, there's a little black on the inside. This is not a real life example of it, just something similar. They cut it up into little pieces, and then that creates the individual eyes when looking at the cross section. Now, there's certain tools that we do want wax on, and then certain tools that we really, really don't want wax on. Those are the tweezers, and we definitely don't want wax on those for most processes because when you try to pinch something, will just slip off of the glass. But we specifically want wax on things like the jacks, which are the two metal blades closest to where Ben is sitting right now. Those two blades, we want wax so that they glide across the piece. And we're adding on the second wing. The way the wings get texture are from these crimps, which Ben just used. These have a texture on those little paddles that squish the glass. Oh yeah, and this is where we usually put our finished pieces. This large black box over there, it's called the annealer. It sits at 900 degrees Fahrenheit, and we just load pieces inside of it all day and then eventually press a button to slowly cool everything down. And that cooling process is pretty long. It's about 12 hours or overnight. So how long we have to work with the glass depends on how thick the glass is. If there's a ton of glass on the end of our pipe, it takes a long time for it to cool down. But with small pieces like this, it cools down really quickly. I think like 30 seconds of working time. These are the benefits of sitting in the front row. So that's the finished dragon. And then we'll prepare to break it off and put it away. So technically, I think some of the glass that drops onto the floor sticks pretty good because there's oftentimes wax on the floor from the tools that we use, but it's not terribly hard to get up. So after cutting at that connection a little bit, we're going to knock this off onto a heated tray and then put it away in the garage, this silver box, where it'll eventually cool down overnight. And let's give them a round of applause for finishing that piece. Thank you, everyone. And then again. The only mold that we use in this process is one mold to get ridges that run along the body like this. But other than that, every single bit is done by hand. Like just taking a pair of tweezers, giving it a twist, a little squeeze here and there. And so this piece is going to turn out different from any of the others, just as you mentioned. Some of them are like a little taller. Some of them have more of like a round neck versus maybe more of like a tightly tucked in neck is the best way I could describe it. So yeah, they're all a little bit different, and that makes them even more charming. And for those who joined in a little bit more recently, I'll reintroduce our project real quick. And while I'm introducing this project, would you mind putting the previous year's pieces on the screen? Thank you. So we are making pieces for Red Hot, which is an annual auction that we have. It's coming up on September 19th, so we are preparing as much as we can, getting everything done. We have some pictures on the screen showing off the previous year's themes of goblets and decanters, because for each Red Hot auction, we create sets of goblets and decanters that we sell. And we have some finished pieces right here on the front pedestal that you're welcome to take a closer look at if you like. But this is this year's theme right here. The goblets have a seahorse in the stem, and then the decanters have a dragon as the stopper. But everything is along the same theme of blue and gold, or kind of an amber gold. And the people who are working on this project, they're going to be right here at the center bench, and they work for the Museum of Glass. These are Museum of Glass employees. Meanwhile, over on the right bench, we will also see something happening, but these are some hands-on workshops, so I don't usually talk through that process very much, but this is something that you guys can sign up for and come down and do yourselves. We have a whole calendar of upcoming workshops that you can ask about at the front desk, or you can look at online. Thank you. So at the center bench, we have gathered up some clear glass, We have picked up our amber color. The amber color was sitting inside of that metal dish on the table over there. We just roll it inside and then it sticks to the outside of our piece. And then we stuffed this into a mold to get our ridges. That's the one mold that I mentioned earlier. Those ridges run along the body. And this is how we get the ridges in the opposite direction. So we use these rollers in the front. They pull the pipe back at these really small, even increments, which creates perfectly spaced striping. So now we have crisscrossing lines across the surface of the glass, a physical texture, kind of like a waffle texture or a net texture. And now we can take this and we can start shaping it into our dragon body. Oh, can we catch the closed captioning up? Those captions were from a while ago, guys. Nobody said anything. Feel free to ask any questions that you guys have. Just in case anyone didn't get to hear that already, just grab my attention and I'll come right over to answer any questions. Inside of, like the ones out there, for example. Okay, so the ones in the Grand Hall, those are very special pieces. Basically, they, of course, as you already imagined, they start off with making those small objects themselves. So you would start with a rod of color like this. You'd melt the end of it down, maybe flatten it and stretch it into a petal, and then you'd make your flowers. And then they bridge all of those pieces of glass together using little strands of clear glass to kind of just hold it together. And then with these pieces in particular, it's like magic. They set it inside of a mold, and then they bring over some clear molten glass on the end of a rod, and they just shove it right on top, and they pull a vacuum at the same time. So that makes sure that there's no air bubbles trapped, and it also pulls the clear glass over those objects so quickly that it doesn't melt those objects or move them very much. It's crazy. No, it's just like, imagine I have like a cup like this, and I just put my glass pieces in there, and there's like a hose, the vacuum attached at the end, and then I just bring over my pipe and I just drop clear glass on top. Yeah, it's interesting. So at this point, we added on those tail fins, and we attached a second pipe to the bottom of the tail, and then broke it off of its first pipe. This is really important. This is basically just to get access to the other side of the piece. We just flipped the orientation. So now we're going to finish off the shape of the neck and start on the head. And this is when we start bringing over all of those other bits for the wings and fins and everything else. So this first bit that we're bringing over, this is going to become one of the arms. Yeah, everything cools really quickly, especially if you're touching it with a cold metal tool. It's going to just zap the heat right out of the glass. So we have very limited working time. I don't know, I would say maybe like 30 seconds of working time. And that's why there's so much back and forth as well between the bench and reheating the glass. Oh, we also can't let the glass drop too far below 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Any part of it, even the glass that's at the very end of the pipe that we're not necessarily going to use, all of that has to stay warm. Otherwise, it'll start cracking and breaking. And this big stripe of clear that we just added down the back, so it's going to turn into those spines on the back. Sorry? Yeah, of course. Yeah, the only thing is I can't like touch them. I haven't picked any up myself or anything. Yeah, they're very precious.
Is that the same? Same as that?
Yeah, it's the same as this one right here. And this is going to be...
The stopper part at the bottom of it now?
Yes, exactly. And I'm not sure how they're going to add them. Maybe later they'll get them hot again and attach it, or they'll use something like acrylic or epoxy. But these are, I think they're going to be like 50 of them in the end. Yeah, they make quite a few of them.
And then the blue ball, is that put on a mold and they blow it, or how do they do the bottom part?
Yes, so the blowing of all of these pieces is done by hand. So they're all going to turn out a little bit different from each other. Maybe height-wise, maybe slightly different width-wise. They do try their best to make them as exact as they can, so they'll use some calipers and they'll just double-check the measurements as they go. But yeah, they'll all be a little bit different from each other because they're hand-blown. Now, once we have the head created, we bring over this tray. This tray has eyes on it, yellow on the outside, black on the inside. And we actually heat up the head more so than the eyes and then pick it up on either side of the head. Oh yeah, and just to share once again, because I'm not sure if anyone missed this, but over on the right, we have some hands-on workshops going on today, if you're curious about that. This is something that you guys could sign up for as well. You just ask the front desk about the calendar of availability, or you can look online as well. But each month we have different pieces that the guests will work on. So this month it's blown fish, and next month, I'm not sure what it'll be, but I know in the fall we create lots of pumpkins, and in the winter we might make some ornaments, or in the spring we make birds and flowers. Actually, so when we're done for the day, we keep the glass furnaces, so the tank with the closed door, that one runs 24/7. So we never turn it off, we never turn it down. Everything else we just shut fully off, except for the annealers, which come down really slowly. And then this one it's unusual to see this off. Usually this one is running 24/7 as well, but we actually just replaced the ceramic crucible that's holding the molten glass. So that was a really big job. And once we finish the piece, we knock it off onto this heated tray, and then we'll set it aside in the annealer, which is the large silver box right here, and it'll stay in there at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit until we're done for the day. And let's give them a round of applause for finishing that piece. Thank you, guys. Hey, welcome into the hot shop. For anyone that I may have missed, we're going to be getting started at the center bench pretty soon. We're going to work on some of these dragons right here on the front table. So just to introduce the project again for anyone that's come in more recently, we are going to be working and focusing mostly right here at the center bench. This is where our resident hot shop team is working. These guys work here for the museum. You'll see them working with visiting artists, working on commission pieces, store pieces, but no matter what, you'll always see them down here. And we're seeing them work on specifically these dragons right here on the front table. This entire white table is covered in these small golden dragons. And these are eventually going to be used as stoppers for these blue decanters on either side of the hot shop. Now, these blue decanters and the goblets you see with them, those are all going to be sold at our Red Hot auction on September 19th. These are made as a theme, basically, or based off of a theme for the auction. And each year we come up with a different theme for these goblets and decanters. And could I see the previous year's themes on the screen, please? So for those who haven't seen this yet, I wanted to put a slideshow up on the screen just to show you how much these pieces change year after year and the variety that we've created in the past. Thank you. So again, at the center bench, we're creating one of these dragons. We've already gotten to the point where we have the overall shape of the body. We've finished the tail. We have just now started bringing over these bits of golden glass that we're attaching one by one, and we're creating things like the wings, the fins, and the face of the dragon. Oh yeah, and over on the right bench, this is an unrelated project, but we have some hands-on workshops going on over there today. So this is something you guys can sign up for. Just ask the front desk about the availability calendar, but basically you come on the floor, you make your own piece of glass, and you eventually take it home with you. And just in case anyone has missed this, the way that we're getting our color, we start with our molten clear glass straight from the furnace being that large tank with the closed door. And then we roll this in that little metal dish on the table. And inside this metal dish, we actually have this exact thing. This right here. It's called frit. It's basically these little shards of colored glass. It's fine enough to be sand, and we basically just roll the clear glass inside of it, and it sticks to the surface and creates a layer of that amber color. And that's just one of many ways to color the glass, but it is a pretty common way. It's a pretty easy way to just roll the glass through, and then you have your color. Different colors come from different metals, minerals, and oxides mixed into the clear glass, and we get all of our color shipped in already made. We don't make any of it ourselves. Now this bit of glass that we just attached is going to turn into the head or face of the dragon. Now, I personally think that the wings are the most satisfying part. We just did the first wing. We bring over this large bit of amber and we crimp it. So these are crimps. These little paddles that we use to squish the glass have a texture on them, and that gives the wings this finished texture, these lines. And then with one more small heat, that wing is bent into its final shape. Hey, welcome into the hot shop, you guys. So I'm going to focus mostly right here at the center bench where we have our resident hot shop team. They're going to be working on these dragons right here on the front table. And these dragons will eventually be used as stoppers for these blue decanters. And all of these items, the blue decanters, the goblets, these are all going to be sold during our Red Hot auction coming up on September 19th. So we're preparing for that auction, making as many of these as we can today. And just to talk about the hot shop a little bit, for those who maybe haven't been in one before, this tank with the closed door in the back is where we're starting all of our projects. There's a large ceramic crucible in the base of this, sitting at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's the upper end of the temperatures of the glass in here. And then when we want to add color, because that's all clear glass, we only start in clear, we have to pick up this frit, which basically are these shards of colored glass, a lot like sand. There's some in that clear container there. There's some in the metal bowl on the table. But there's so many ways to add color. For example, right now we're picking up some eyes for the dragon. So these are little yellow and black pieces of glass, or yellow on the outside, black on the inside. And then we have to make sure that the entire piece is staying warm overall, which means we'll put the entire thing inside of that large open face furnace just to reheat it, make sure it stays at about 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. Hey guys, welcome into the hot shop. So right here at the center bench, which we have a view of on the screen, we're working on these dragons. These are all finished ones right here on the front table. Eventually, they will be turned into stoppers that'll be used for the tops of these blue decanters. And these blue decanters, the goblets, all of that will be sold during our Red Hot auction coming up September 19th. But for today, we're just going to make as many of these dragons as we can with our time. And we just finished this one off. Oh yeah, and over on the right bench, we have some hands-on workshops going on today. They're making some blown fish. Now we'll break this off onto a heated tray and carry it over to the garage, which is a silver box right here. And basically, we will put all of our finished ones into this box, which sits at about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Eventually, we will turn it off, and they'll just slowly cool down in there overnight. And the next day, we'll be able to pull them out and put them on the table just like these. Now, with bigger pieces of glass, we usually have to cool these with a programmed cycle. And those go into these large boxes that we have on our far walls and in the front. So these ones, they actually have programming to them. We press a button and it ticks down very slowly for, well, however long we want, but usually about 12 hours or so. And then it's on to the next one. So see, we started with clear glass, like Ben has right now. Any color you see right now is just the glass being so hot that it's irradiating light as well as heat. It's glowing like lava. And after getting one more layer of clear glass, we rolled it in a metal dish This is where we're getting our color. It's basically textured like sand, but they're basically just little shards of colored glass called frit. And we pick that up. We now have a layer of amber on the surface of our piece. And we heat this up and stuff it inside of a mold on the floor. This applies ridges to the glass from one end to the other. And you'll be able to see these ridges better once we sit down at the bench. Now we can lengthen this and turn it into the shape for the body of the dragon. Now, after getting that general shape, we bring it to the rollers in the front, and this is going to give us ridges going in the opposite direction just by wrapping some clear glass all the way around. And if you take a closer look at these pieces down at the front table, which you guys are welcome to come down and look at these, they have kind of a waffle or crisscross or net sort of pattern across the entire piece. And those steps that we just finished, that's how we get that pattern. We did it for the dragons, for the stoppers, and for the seahorses that are in the stems of the goblets. So, for those who just joined in and maybe haven't heard my little introduction, we are working on these dragons right here on the front table, and you guys are welcome to take a closer look at these if you like. Also, whenever Ben finishes these dragons, he tends to walk up to the front, show the front row the finished piece on the pipe. So, I definitely recommend sitting in the front. But anyways, eventually we're going to use these dragons as stoppers for these decanters. And these decanters will eventually go into our Red Hot auction on September 19th, along with the goblets. There's going to be many of them created. And this is something we do each year. We come up with a different design. We create sets of goblets and decanters, and then we sell them at a set price during that auction. And this auction is a huge fundraiser for the Museum of Glass. So we're working on another one of these dragons right now. We've just finished the overall shape of the body. We just added the arms of the dragon. And now we're going to be bringing over some bits of color for the face and wings. Oh yeah, and over on the right, just for those who didn't hear about this, we have some hands-on workshops going on today. So the people coming down on the floor, they're able to sit down and make their own piece of glass that they eventually take home with them. And there's a calendar of dates online and at the front desk available if you'd like to check this out. And now we bring this tray over. This actually has little eyes for the dragon. These eyes are yellow on the outside and black on the inside. Basically, they started as a long rod of that colored glass, the yellow on the outside, black on the inside. They just chop it up into a bunch of little pieces, and those form the individual eyes when you look at the cross section of that rod. So now we have the face. We'll start bringing over a couple more bits for the wings. Now, the texture for the wings is coming from the crimp that Ben just used for a second there. Yeah, the crimps basically just have these lines on the inside of them that apply a texture to the wings. And then with a brief heat again, Ben's able to sit down and pull the wing into its final position. Now, for those who just joined in, we're working on making a golden dragon right here at the center bench. And so far, we've taken our clear glass, we've rolled it in a little metal dish to pick up some color. It's basically like a crushed colored glass textured like sand. And then we stuffed this glass into a mold. So we have ridges going all the way down this glass. Then we shape it and lengthen it into the body of the dragon. And then we use this setup in the front. These are some rollers. And when we turn the pipe in the rollers, they pull the pipe back at these really small, even increments. And this allows us to wrap some glass around it perfectly even. So we have just perfect space striping. So now we essentially have crisscrossing lines of color, almost like a net or kind of a waffle texture across the surface of the glass. So welcome into the hot shop, you two. Hi. I just wanted to update on what we're working on. We're continuing to work on these dragons, which we have all across this front table right here. And these are eventually used for stoppers for our decanters. I know it might be a little bit hard to see from over there, but we will eventually bring this to the front and kind of show it off to people as well. And this is what we're working on at the center bench, just to reiterate. This is our resident hot shop team. These guys work here for the museum, making pieces for commissions for the store, helping visiting artists that come through. So you'll always see this team on the floor. Meanwhile, over on the right, this is a hands-on workshop over here. So guests are coming down on the floor and they're making their own piece of glass that they eventually take home with them. And this bit that we had just attached is going to turn into the face, the head of the dragon. So it looks like we might see one more. Hey, feel free to sit down wherever you like if you want to watch for a bit. We're going to be making one more of our dragons right here at the center bench. And then over on the right bench, I think they might be kind of wrapping up. Yeah, no, they're wrapping up for sure. They were doing some hands-on workshops over on the right bench where they were making blown fish. They just finished the last one. So far for our dragon, we have gotten our clear glass. We've gotten our color. The color is coming from that little metal bowl on the table, which that color is kind of textured like sand. It's something called frit, basically these shards of colored glass. And we roll the clear glass inside of it to pick it up. And then we are able to just continue on. We stuffed it into a mold, which gave us these ridges going down the glass. And now we're going to get ridges going the opposite direction all the way around the glass by using this roller in the front. So this is the overall texture for the dragon, and for the seahorses, kind of a crisscrossing texture, almost like waffles or netting. And now we can continue to shape this into the tail of the dragon. The tail will be furthest away from the pipe. Hey, you guys came in just in time to see the last dragon. So the glass that we're working with is always somewhere between 1 and 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, it's completely molten to the texture of honey, and that's when we're freshly gathering it out of the crucible in the furnace. And then when it cools down to when it's solid, that's at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it's solid. And we don't let it drop below that. So we've curled up the tail. We're going to bring over a small bit of colored glass, and this is going to be attached and create the tail fins. And then once we have the tail end of the dragon complete, we are basically going to transfer it to a second pipe so that we can work on the head end of the dragon. So the first thing we do, we add a little bit of clear to the bottom. This is just going to be flattened into a pad, and you can actually see this on all of the finished dragons as well. This is where we would attach it to something like the foot of a goblet or the top of the stopper for this decanter. So then we attach this pipe onto the end. We break the piece away with just a squeeze of the tool and a tap of the pipe. And now we can start finishing the head end of the piece. So we're still finishing off that dragon that you guys saw when you just left. We just finished off the curvature of the neck, and then we're going to start adding on these bits for the legs first, and then the face, and then the wings last. Now, there's a top of the stopper for the decanters. I know they look very similar, but if you look at them a little bit closer, the wings of the dragon are bigger. It has spines going down the back of the neck. So there are a few differences like that. What it is also just bigger in general. Yeah, dragon. And then this one's a seahorse. So we bring a bit over, attach it to the front, and this is going to turn into the face and the head of the dragon. So the silver box right there, we use pretty frequently throughout the day, but it's called the garage because you can park the end of the pipe in it. It's called the garage, yeah. And we basically just keep things warm in there at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the job of the garage. It sounds hot, but that's actually kind of cold for glass. It starts to, well, it's completely solid at that temperature.